else, those that showed up. They're each going to get 2 minutes to introduce themselves, and then we're going to go into the question portion. Let's start with you.
Hello, did you hear me?
No.
Hi, my name is Mustafa.
Yeah.
Is that better? Sorry about that. Hi, my name is Mustafa. I've actually lived here in Whittier, Greater Whittier area for since 1980. I've actually attended Kibben, Whittier, High, Leopoldville, and I went on to get my bachelor's degree from California State University, Fullerton. The beautiful part about my story is that I actually grew from very humble beginnings. I wasn't the typical silver spoon-fed person, and I worked really hard to make sure that what little I had and my family had was right. Get excited, sorry. We decided that when I finally decided to purchase my home, I wanted Whittier, the city of Whittier, to be my home. So I live in a house that's actually close by here off of Louder? Okay, is that? Okay, I'm so sorry. We should have done a quality control sound first. So when we decided to buy a home, we exited out Whittier to go and live. And now I live in a home right next to Whittier High School and continue to call Whittier home. I shop and I eat at all the local areas and have now decided to get involved with my community to ensure we guarantee representation, improve safety and lighting in a lot of the District 1 neighborhoods, and start making sure that we move Whittier forward and start getting District 1 with the same attention that other parts of Whittier have gotten throughout the years. This is a very historic event. We finally get to elect who we want to represent us for this slice of Whittier. And I want to ask for your vote to say good job to Mr. Ray for the survey. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Well, I was actually born in the city of Whittier, over there at Presbyterian Hospital, on December 14th, 1973. I grew up in a low-income family, attended Whittier School, starting at Ocean View, East Whittier Middle School, and I graduated from Whittier High School, where I did serve on the school site council that recommended the fence to be done to you around the facility. I've also lived at 5 Points. In fact, I remember where I was during the 1987 earthquake. I remember the movie theater where Walgreens is now. My parents would spatch money together each week to take me and my siblings, and the disappointment we felt, along with other members of our community, when they had to tear that down, and other things there. But it is what it is, and this isn't my first time running. I have run before, right out of high school, of course, which I don't recommend. This time around, I went away and subsided from politics, and I know more now. I'm more experienced. I served 9 years in the U.S. military, including 1 year down in Iraq. I have some experience. I remember where the Greenway Trail, what used to be railroad tracks. In fact, I used to walk those railroad tracks on the way to school and sometimes on the way to Ralph's. I remember the quad when there used to be an indoor mall. Running because there's the reason I'm running is because this district's going to need somebody with experience and knowledge of the history and how the governance happens here in Whittier. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you, candidates. This is the first question that we have from the audience. First statement, there's a question. Why is Whittier planning to spend over $9.2 million for a new parking structure when the one on Bright has been losing money for decades? Question is, do you really believe parking meters on Greenleaf will improve our uptown economic vitality? Any ideas for our homeless dilemma? What's what?
Okay. I'm actually from the same belief that an investment of that large amount when we already invested that previously is not the best allocation of our funds. When you look at the parking structure that's already in uptown, the majority of the time, it's empty. People don't use it, we don't get that much revenue as a city from it, so I'm not understanding the background as to why we would throw that much money into it and neglect the homeless issue that we currently have within the entire city of Whittier. I'm also had the opportunity to speak to some of the current city council members that support the meters in Whittier, and to make it as simple and as easy, my answer is no way. District 1 is a low-income renter community, and we don't need to pay to shop and eat in our own community. Thank you.
I've actually talked about this to this about the city council, and I've also talked to the Uptown Association about the same question. And it's not because of any lack of priorities on city council's part, it's because they took the money that should have gone there and they put it towards social services to help those who didn't help themselves. You can ask if that's the wrong priority or not, but it's what happens, what we're dealing with now. And right now, I would question why we should trust them with a new parking structure if they haven't been able to take care of the one they have already. Thank you.
Okay, candidates, next question. Although this is a nonpartisan election, we all know that party preference says a lot about a person's view of the role of government. What party do you belong to and why? Josue?
Just to give everyone a little bit of background, I do have a business degree, but I'm also a Democrat, registered Democrat. And I have to speak from a Hispanic background. In 2015 was a very hard year as a Mexican American that's tried very hard to lift himself and his family out of poverty. Hear the things being heard in 2015 and referred to us. The reason why I continue to be a Democrat is because I believe every person should chart their own path. Every person should have a right at the American dream, and the only party that exists at this point that's at least trying is the Democratic Party. Now, that is also offset a bit with the fact that I am a business-minded individual and understand that at the local level, we have to be fiscally responsible. So if you're looking for a candidate that can actually balance the best of both worlds, I'm your guy. Thank you.
Well, I come from a family of Democrats. My mother was active in the Democratic Party. In fact, I'm a Republican because of the principles of Abraham Lincoln and what the Republican Party used to stand for. Currently, I am under pressure from family members back east to change my affiliation. In fact, you're familiar with one of my cousins. Happens to live at 1600, and we can finish the rest of that. I don't really agree with one particular candidate has been saying lately. In fact, my dad went to World War II and fought against the things that he's trying to promote. Thank you.
Okay, candidates, next question from our audience here. What will you do to assure the city of Whittier has the public services it needs, and the restroom facilities, security at larger events, etc.?
Okay. Well, I'm going to take those in order of what I think is priority. Everyone in the city of Whittier, whether it's District 1 or District 3 or District 4, should have the right to a secure home. Right now, there are parts of District 1 that suffer from an overabundance of homelessness. When it comes to being part of the city council, you have to address the needs that are involving the safety of your residents as priority number one. Without a secure city, we do not have a thriving business community. So my priorities would be taking care of the security issue by increasing the funding that will help either through funding of private sector security company or increasing the funds for the police department to be able to serve the cities that they are obligated to serve, to make sure that we address a lot of the safety issues we all have. Improving lighting in certain areas of District 1, south of Whittier Boulevard, we do a great job. We only have those things in other parts of the city of Whittier. My job is to advocate to bring a lot of those resources and bring District 1 to the same standard that the rest of the city is. Thank you.
Okay, overall, when you compare Whittier to a lot of the other places, here in Southern California, our crime rate is actually pretty low. However, it doesn't help too much if your part of the city is the one where most of the crime is happening. Now, in the other half of the city, they don't understand what we're talking because I've lived over there and they really don't have any crime over there. So the crime that has happened in Whittier has happened in District 1. And what you have to do is you have to boost the confidence of the residents. And Chief Piper, who is our current police chief, has been very proactive about getting out there and making sure that the residents feel comfortable, that they feel welcome in our community. And if you have any concerns, he's always there. His door's always open. Thank you.
We've got another question from the audience. How are you going to make sure the youth has positive activities in the city? Robert? I waited till he sat down.
Well, Whittier has a lot of programs for our youths. It's a question of making sure all of our youths have equal access to those services and activities. I remember growing up and my parents took me to Yorkfield for the 4th of July events. In fact, I remember Yorkfield being open to the community. There were no gates and you didn't need a special appointment. These days, not so much. And so what I'd like to do is, we need another park. Not in this area right now, we need one at South by 5 months because that's the area where we don't have a park. Okay? I'd like to see more activities at the library also, which Bill done a good job. Okay? Thank you.
I personally think this is an area that District 1 should be severely concerned with. When you look at the Penn Park, Palm Park, all of these parks are outside your district and they look amazingly beautiful. We all go there and take our families there. And your field, to this point, I actually used to be part of the families that couldn't afford to even get inside when they were having their 4th of July fireworks show. So we would actually sit outside. I think that living in the 21st century in the richest country in the world, there should not be a price for people to enjoy city services that their taxes already paid for. You pay for it as a renter and you pay for it as a homeowner. It's already included. What I want to go ahead and move forward with is making sure that events like that included the entire community, rich or poor, are returned back to the community. That we focus on increasing the size of the quality parks in District 1. Because my son had to go all the way to Palm Park to take swimming classes because there's nothing like that around our area. We can change that by just making sure that we allocate funds in the long term. This isn't a short-term solution, but it requires strategic planning for us to move forward. Thank you.
Our next question. What do you do for a living and how would it help you as a councilman? Counselor?
Interestingly enough, I was raised by a family with a strong work ethic. So when you ask me what I do for a living, I'm a multicultural marketing specialist for the company called Time Warner Cable. My job is to look at all the data and help manage a $32 million budget and allocate it strategically to garner the best results. That's exactly what your city council is supposed to do for you. Look at the tax base from sales tax and real estate tax and figure out a way how to best serve you to give you the best results. I've seen some examples just recently where the city council are applying to get a title of an all-American city that's up in the tens of thousands of dollars. That's money we can use to help the homeless. That's money we can put aside to improve other areas of Whittier in District 1 that need help. Speed bumps in certain streets that actually have been neglected for years and have constant accidents because no one decides to put a stop sign or a speed bump. That's the type of person you're going to get with me. Making sure that we cut back on some of the things that are a little frivolous and make sure we start investing in things that benefit you. Thank you.
Well, I actually work in security. So I know a thing or two about making communities more secure. I'd like to bring up an elephant in the room that since no one has been asked about yet, and that's our budget. Because we're talking about parks and we're talking about libraries and we're going to be talking about a few other things, but you need money to pay for those things. And the problem is right now that no matter how the current city council spends it, next year we're going to have a deficit, and we're going to have to fill that deficit before we can do anything else. Thank you.
Okay, would you support moving future city council elections to coincide with national and statewide elections held in November of even numbered years? Why or why not? Robert?
I'm not sure if that would have the impact that we're thinking it might have. It's possible. The only way to find out is to try it. However, having said that, what I'm pushing for is actually term limits and an independent redistricting commission, because I think that would go further towards the positive change that we're looking for. As far as moving the election date, there's a bill in the United States, in the California Assembly that's moving forward. And what that bill would do is, if your city's elections are below a certain percentage in turnout, you'd be required automatically to move your elections to November.
My approach is actually a little more proactive. I don't want to wait until the state tells us that we need to move our elections to November. I think that's a proactive approach we should take within our city to make sure that we increase the participation. In District 1, when we didn't have district elections, this side of council only contributed 3% of the overall votes for everything in the city of Louisville. That's because people don't have the time and the energy to go vote in April, go vote in primaries, and then go vote in November. We have to make it easy for you. That's who we work for. The best way we can do that in regards to the elections is one vote at the city council level saying, let's move it to November. That's it. It doesn't require for the state to come up with a drastic law and impose on everybody else. This is what local governance is about. Taking steps to improve the quality of life for our citizens and not waiting for the state to solve the benefit. Thank you.
Candidates, as you go about your campaigns, what are you hearing are as the major concerns of people in our district? Josue?
The biggest divisible issue that I've seen in District 1 after walking and door knocking at people's homes, hi to those that I've met already, is that, we understand that, representation is lacking and that homelessness is a priority. You're the individuals that bear the brunt of the homeless issue here in District 1. When the alleys that have been established here in Goodyear for, decades ago, that's where they sleep. The dumpsters that they have, that's where they're doing things that they should not be doing. My home is right next to an alley, and I've had to call the cops multiple times because we're not addressing the homeless issue. Me calling the cops for the safety of the individuals that live in my house to protect my son from the exposure of drug use should not be the solve. There needs to be a coordinated effort for the city to get involved and really start identifying how we can help the individuals. I'm not here to kind of push for a blank check for individuals, but we need to have a path for them to receive services and work through our state, county, and local agencies to figure out a way how we can help. Because if we don't take the initiative in solving this problem, it's only going to get worse, and it's not plaguing the entire city.
Well, one of the issues that keeps coming up when I talk to people is public safety. In fact, I used to live on, this couple of weeks ago, I lived on Pickering, and it seemed like every month there was an accident on Pickering. But for some reason, the city would say that they didn't see anything there because nobody was making complaints. Which is, that's not a way to run a city. City council should be proactive. The other issue is, well, I want to ask, how many people here are members of their local neighborhood watch? If you're not, you should join one, and if your neighborhood doesn't have one, you should start one. Okay? And the other issue is about jobs, and that was brought up yesterday. It's knocking on doors. And our city council's done a great job in bringing corporations into our city to fill the city's coffers. Problem is, those corporations haven't exactly been hiring here in Whittier, and we still have Whittierites looking for work. So my approach to that would be to work with the Uptown Association and the chamber to create job fairs and a central location so businesses can find the employees they need.
Okay, our next question is, what can be done to ensure that the city council will not continue to raise our water meter rates any further? We are all paying a lot. Robert?
I actually got caught up at the last city council meeting over this, after I asked some questions about it. And the reason I brought it up is because, how many of you remember NFIB versus Civilius? That would be the National Federation of Independent Businesses, and that's the first Obamacare ruling, where the United States Supreme Court ruled that fees imposed by government are taxes and should be treated as taxes. Now, in the state of California, we have a law that says you want to raise taxes, you have to get voter approval. Now, since 2012, they've raised the water rates 3 different times. Now, how many of those times has our city council come to you and asked you for your permission to raise the water rates? So I would say that those rate hikes were possibly illegal and that we need to go on the ballot. Now, it's nice that they created a new pumping plant, but now that that's done, they need to either resign those rate hikes, refund the excess money back to the people, or put it in the pipes. Now they're saying that the pipes are going to take 40 years to do. That's ridiculous. There's no reason for it. If we need to, we can put a bond on the measure, and we will work together to address that issue.
I'm going to ask a question of the audience. Who here knows that we are on a severe trend? Please raise your hand. The western side of the United States is suffering from a severe drought. A lot of the things that are happening right now are a result of poor planning at the state level and the federal level to prepare for these things. Unfortunately, when we end up pushed against the wall, you end up with results like this. Having the city increase your rates, it's really being mandated at the state level to get people to cut back. And unfortunately, when it comes to that type of scenario, now you're going to start seeing a lot of homes that have to have, brownish lawns. I enjoyed a beautiful green lawn. I had to cut that back. And it wasn't because of the money. It was because, truth be told, I had to do something to leave some water behind for my children. I think the city council went about it too quickly and at the last minute as a reactive effort for the lack of planning they had when we've known we've had this problem for a long time. So right now, you're feeling the shock. I think moving forward as a city council member, we need to start planning a little better to prevent shocks like this. Thank you.
Okay, if the petition to withdraw and revisit the council's recent selection of a city trash hauler is successful, will you support or oppose the new selection process and why? First question.
I'm very big on process. And my understanding is that process was not as open, and with your government, local government, that should be the most open process available. I also believe that if the will of the people to sign a petition and get this on the ballot passes, whether I agree with it or not, it needs to be respected. So I actually plan to see this actually go through and see what actually happens with it, because you as citizens of the city have a right to question the decision of the city council member, whether you agree with it or not. And if you feel strongly enough to put something on the ballot measure, you should be allowed to vote for it, and your city council member should respect that decision and support it. I plan to work with whatever group is selected, and I also plan to go ahead and revisit the issue as a city council member with an open mind and figure out what went wrong the first time so we can manage the second time. So I am in support of revisiting that issue if it passes by you. Thank you.
Okay. The thing with this is that I can't really express an opinion on it since I'm actually investigating it. And for me to express an opinion, I'd be kind of biased. What I will say is that the process should be open. In fact, I am speaking to the VP of Athens tomorrow morning, and I'm going to ask him for the same thing I asked for the City Council. Full access to all records relating to the bidding process. Thank you.
Okay, candidates, we have something from the audience, statement, and then a question. I believe in helping the homeless, but how do we manage other cities from bringing their homeless to Whittier? Robert?
Oh, we can't exactly ban them. So I'm sure that would be the bigger solution, but I don't think it's something that we want to do as a community. In fact, it goes against Whittier values and it goes against Whittier traditions. Whittier has always been a friendly city. That's been our slogan, be a friendly city. And we've always been a hospitable city. In fact, one of the things I've been doing is tinkering with the city charter, and I'm trying to get the city council to allow us to have a convention to rewrite the city charter. And there's a section in there about a hospital committee. And I'm talking about taking that out, and what I want to do is I want to change that to hospitality, but not for the homeless, because the way you address the homeless is you get all the organizations in the city together that have a stake, and that doesn't just mean Presbyterian, First State, and means people like you also, because you all have a role in helping with that issue. We're going to need to make sure that they have the services they need, access to mental health, which is one big thing that we need. And we also need to make sure they have jobs too.
The majority of these services are already provided by LA County. Mental health services, and I really do think because of the environment we have in Whittier here specifically, you do have a legitimate concern to say that the more services we might provide, the more individuals we're going to attract to the center county. District 1 bears the brunt of those individuals that decide to move to the city of Whittier to receive the services. My plan would be not only to work with the organizations to really establish a hub, but also work with the other districts to make sure we share the load. It's not fair to District 1 that the majority of services are here, so guess where they're going to congregate? We need to make sure that we expand the services citywide and provide transportation credit through our public transportation to make sure all of Whittier, this is a goal of ours and a priority of ours, and we're serious about solving, that we all share the load, not just your neighborhoods. Thank you.
Okay, candidates, what is your plan to offset the loss of the Bright Hotel and the Village Inn? Josue?
Being that we're going into a deficit year, it's going to be very difficult for the city itself to go ahead and just come up with the funds to solve this problem, to go ahead and create housing for individuals that are homeless. We're going to have to work at the state level. So what I've done already, before I'm even elected, is I'm already developing relationships with individuals at the state level, because that's where the money is going to need to come from. There is no way that I would be in favor for the hardworking individuals of Whittier who have their taxes increased when your water rates are already going up, when there's the possibility of parking meters going up in Whittier. That's not what I'm running for office for. My job is not to tax you. My job is to find innovative ways to work with the state and federal levels to make sure we have those relationships so when funds do become available, it's of no additional cost to you. So I give the commitment of already working with those individuals. Ian Calderon, great supporter, has already endorsed me for this candidacy with the intention of we're going to get together to go ahead and solve this problem and figure out how to save the right money. It's the only way. Any other way is a lie to the Whittier residents, because the only way other than getting the money from the state or federal level would be the tax increase.
This is an issue I've spoken with the Uptown Association about. Talking about the parking meters, it's kind of interesting that they sort of have parking meters already in their parking lots, and none of that funds are shared with the association or the businesses in here, right? Even though they're supposed to be the beneficiaries. In fact, the association and many of its members are actually struggling to keep their rents paid, and some of them are this close to going out of business. What Uptown Whittier needs is a totally complete renovation, and the city council did hire an outsider to draw up plans, for example, a new parking structure, and not just a new parking structure, but the beautification of Uptown. But at the same time, we were talking about water mains earlier and the pumping plant. Well, if we're going to be replacing the water mains, then I would say that since we're already beautifying Uptown Whittier, let's go ahead and take care of that too. And the housing thing is that I'm on PA, and the one thing that Whittier lacks is VA housing.
Candidates, have you read the revised Uptown Whittier specific plan? Robert?
No, I haven't, but I intend to today.
I have not read it, and let me tell you the reason why I have not read it. I think, and when you hear about the strategies that they're developing to make sure that they put parking meters to go ahead and inconveniences the businesses we have there, that's already a flaw within itself. I think we need to go back and revisit the plan once I am a city council member and redraft it in a way that's fiscally responsible, in a way that benefits you as a resident and not excludes the newer businesses and benefits the corporations that are trying to move into your town. I'm all for business, but I'm also for protecting the residents that work here and the residents that live here. We need to start moving in a way that we don't make empty promises, but move in a way that actually benefits you as a resident to make sure that you're not taxed additionally to help support new corporations. So if I'm elected, I actually plan to go ahead and not only read it, but redraft it and take it a step further to make sure that that plan benefits you. Thank you.
Okay, folks, this is the last one that we have from the public so far. So if you need additional cards, please raise your hand. Joanne will bring you additional cards. Or if you have one filled out, please do raise your hand, okay? Remember, this is for you. We want to hear from you. Okay, so the city of Whittier has many notable historic structures, some of which are in District 1. What is your plan for preserving Whittier's historic character? Josue?
I actually have a personal benefit to this as my home is well over 100 years old. Why did you buy a house and pay a good amount of money for it, market value, to own a home that's more than 100 years old? Because I built a character, and that character is very unique to Whittier. I'm a big fan to making sure that that type of home is preserved, but we also need to move it to the 21st century. Some of the rules that they apply for these type of homes, they're very specific as to what kind of windows you can have. I can't replace my windows to make sure they're energy efficient to protect my planet, because that specific rule says they need to be made out of wood, which is not isolated enough for the AC to run efficiently. So I think that needs to be revisited. Even though I'm all for preserving these homes, we need to find a way that it's well balanced to make sure that we also protect our planet and to make sure that we continue to leverage certain things that we already know from the planet that benefit in regards to revenues and services instead of just focusing on the home and stuff. Thank you.
We have an active community, and since the United States of an earthquake, they've worked pretty hard to preserve what we can preserve. Some of you are familiar with what's going on at Nails, and they have a gym there that they're getting ready to tear down. Personally, I prefer to see it turned into a veterans recreation center, but it takes money though. They're talking about $30 million. Where do we get that? Well, Josu was just talking about state money, and that's one thing that you would get state money for, and there's also federal money for it. And it's also a matter of priorities. You have limited funds, you got to prioritize. So which facilities do you want to preserve? And if you don't have the funds, you got to get creative. We got creative with Guilford Hall. There were some issues there. They're wanting to tear it down. Instead, what we did was we got together and we decided we're going to move it and we're going to use it to provide housing for low-income families right here on the corner of La Porta and Penn.
Okay, candidates, if elected, what are the 3 top issues you would address in District 1? Robert?
The top 3 issues? Okay. My top 3 issues are jobs, affordable housing, and the continuation of political change. I spoke about term limits earlier. In fact, I'm the only candidate that has promised that I will only serve 2 terms. If I'm elected, I'm stepping down in 2024, so that one of you, should you decide to, will have the opportunity to run for city council on an open seat and have a fair and equal chance to win, just like me and Josu here. Jobs, well, I went into that earlier. Corporations, but corporations don't hire people. That's why I want to work with small businesses. I'm promoting small businesses at the Nails Development. I'm also working with the Uptown Association and Chamber of Commerce. Affordable housing, well, the VA says that Whittier has an atrocious record when it comes to providing housing for homeless veterans. And those are my issues. Thank you.
just to clarify, my name's Postle. We've been many times, I don't know why all of a sudden we can't pronounce my name. But just to talk about the main issue. For me, representation is key. This is the first time that your area leader gets to decide and elect who is going to represent them and who's going to make sure to fight for them. I think one of the main differences that I see here is that I can only speak with myself, and what I've heard from other candidates is that I'm willing to do the work for you. I'm not throwing it back to you. I want to make sure that when you come to me with a concern, whether it's police related, whether it's finance related, then I take it on. I'm not going to forward you to the chief of police. I'm not going to forward you to another department leader that may not have time for you. That's our job. That's the only way you're going to keep us accountable. And if we're not accountable, there needs to be no term limits. The minute we're not serving you, get us the hell out. Not after 2 terms, but 1. The second priority I actually have is safety. And the reason why I'm putting safety is that without representation, no one can promise you safety because they're not representing you. So with that point is that make sure that when you do elect someone, these are my 3 priorities: representation, safety, and affordable housing.
En español, por favor.
Do I have another few seconds to Las 3 prioridades que yo tengo para mi candidatura es asegurarme que tengamos representación local, asegurarnos sin la representación no puede haber seguridad. So me quiero asegurar que la representación que yo les hago ofreciendo es una de responsabilidad de cuando ustedes me traigan algo que es un problema en sus áreas de la ciudad, yo me hago responsable. Yo no les voy a decir que vayan con el departamento de policía, yo no les voy a decir que vayan a crear un neighborhood watch. Es mi trabajo de asegurarse que ustedes estén sanos y salvos en sus propias casas. Y sin esa representación no puedo garantizar lo que es la seguridad. So, esa es la segunda punto de mi candidatura. Asegurarme que donde ustedes viven siempre sea seguro y sano. ¿Qué importa si viven en un apartamento o en una casa lujosa? Ustedes merecen esos servicios porque ustedes pagan sus impuestos. Y la tercera es asegurarme de ayudar a la mayoría de gente que vive en el Distrito 1 que encuentren casas de hogares para asegurarse que puedan comprar sus propias casas. Gracias.
Chances in the house. Okay, I've got the next one from our public. First there's a statement and then there's a question. At city council meetings, members of the public are afforded 3 minutes to speak. But if a member of the public asks a question, why is it that the city council merely states, "Thank you, your 3 minutes are up," and the council never responds to the question? Councilman?
The way the agenda is set up with the city council, unfortunately, they follow parliamentary procedure. And the only time you have to speak is those 3 minutes. Unfortunately, I think that system needs to be included because if you're not getting your questions answered, if you're taking time out of your day during the middle of the, from 7, and on a Tuesday when you have work that is a legitimate problem. This is where I can make it easier for individuals. I commit to make sure that every question that comes up to me in city council, I address those personally, whether it's off the record or whether it's right there in the meeting. And we need to make sure we start pushing city council to answer these questions because that answer has been accepted and it's been repeated to you like if it's common standard. You have a right to demand your answers and you have a right to change that process. I commit to making sure that if elected, we start pushing to make sure that those questions get answered through the city manager or through the mayor of the office or through your district representative. I plan to answer those questions whether you might agree with that or not. The least you can be given is the respect of an honest answer.
Well, actually, I go to a lot of city council meetings and I speak a lot of city council meetings and I do ask questions and most of the time I don't get answers. And the reason they don't answer directly is because there's actually a law that says the city council cannot directly answer a question during a council meeting. However, if you were to ask them after the meeting or during a break or before, they could give you a direct answer about that. The agendas for the city council, for those of you who might be curious, is actually set by the city council as a whole, and then the way we set those agendas is because of people like you going up to them and telling them that you're concerned about this, you're concerned about that, and then your council member will bring that up to the rest of the city council, and they discuss it, and they decide whether or not to put that on the agenda. So it's the whole city council as a whole setting the agenda based on what on the feedback from you. That's why I talk about Chief Piper. If you have any concerns, he has an open door because he's relying on you, information from the public.
Okay, candidates, are you involved in any city nonprofits? Which, why, and how would you support them? Robert?
Currently, I'm a member of the Whittier Seventh-day Adventist Church. I'm also the founder and chairperson of the Whittier Area Transgender Association. In fact, I'm the only transgender person in the city's history to run for city council, as well as having been the youngest. I do support a lot of the other nonprofits also and their goals. Our city has provided immense support for our nonprofits. It's a matter of funding priorities though, because we do have some funding issues coming up.
Looking at my history, my family has always been a giving family. And interestingly enough, you know, when I was about 21, 22, life happened. You know, my son was born, had to focus my priorities on getting my degree, raising a good son with good values, and making sure I move him and our family forward. So when it finally came time that now my son here is sitting right here, turned 14 and a half, about to turn 15, that freed up some time for me. So what did me and my family start doing? Even though we're not involved with direct organizations, we do support them. But the biggest thing of giving that my family has taught me is that what we actually did recently for this district is that what little we had as a family, we kind of gathered together. And instead of going through a nonprofit and putting it through certain political hurdles, we decided, you know what, Black Friday, let's go buy a bunch of gifts. God has blessed us significantly the past few years. The least we can do is go up Milton, Comstock, at some of the more needy families, and give a little back. So we were able to go ahead and give about 200 gifts to local, low-income individuals that live in the district. Fortunately, for next year, we want to have something like that. We want to start working with the organizations. Now that I do have the time and the energy and dedication, it's things like that that are going to move the state forward through volunteering and plugging into the city organizations to make it bigger. And we plan to do that next year. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna drink water. This is a long one. So I'm gonna do the statement portion first, and then I'll go ahead and read the question to you. A Superior Court judge and the Court of Appeals have ruled that the oil lease agreement between Matrix Oil and the city was illegal and placed an injunction against the city against proceeding without the permission of the Open Space District. Question: do you accept this decision as legally binding, and will you commit to opposing any further oil drilling projects in the Whittier Hills? What?
This is a prime example of how if you don't stay diligent in your pipes, the pipes will come down. The reason why that injunction exists is because they use certain bond money to go ahead and purchase the green lands that they have up there. All the Whittier needs to do to kind of overturn that is to buy a certain lot in those hills using non-bond money, and that injunction no longer becomes valid. So this is where we as a community have to be very cognizant. The reason why I'm extremely opposed to any drilling up in the Whittier Hills area is because the majority of our water supply actually comes from there. And if any of you guys are familiar with the fracking industry and the fracking process, we will be poisoning our water supply and moving towards even a faster degradation of the water supply in this economic drought we're suffering and this plant is suffering for the next few years. So for that reason and that reason alone, it's one of the reasons why I want to protect not only the hills, but our water sources. I am a firm opponent of us ever drilling in Uptown. I want to make sure that if elected, I support that decision to keep oil out of the hills.
Let me start with saying this, that the bond measure that they used to purchase that parkland, that was Prop A. Okay? And the court, I agree with the court because the courts are the final arbiters in our system, in our country. Recently, however, the city council has decided just recently that they're going to appeal that decision after I had told them not to. And since they've appealed, I've been talking to them individually, telling them that they need to drop those appeals. I don't know how many of you have been to council meetings, but if you look at the closed session part of that agenda, there's at least 15 lawsuits regarding to the oil issue. The court's already decided on it. Yet, and we have a deficit coming up, and yet the city council is wasting our money, our tax money, on a frivolous appeal for something that they simply do not have the right to do. And if I'm elected, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure the city drops that appeal. And I'm going to make sure the city settles those lawsuits. There will be no drug. How many of you have Google Earth? I'm going to give you some homework tonight. Go home, open up Google Earth, and zoom into the hills, and you'll find areas of those hills where they've already started tearing up, getting ready for the ground. And they've already done too much environmental damage, and it's time for it to stop.
Okay, I have one here, and the question is, and it's not for you guys, why isn't David Gonzalez here so I can answer that question? They'll make up all kinds of things. Kidding. So David Gonzalez actually had prior calendar commitments for today. That is what David Gonzalez shared with us. Next question is, every month the council agenda includes claims against the city by homeowners for things such as city tree roots ruining home plumbing, or a city tree branch fell and damaged a car. What gives the city the right to deny all claims? Josue?
Very simple. They don't want to pay for it. It's just that simple. When the city actually decides to go ahead and maintain these trees, they also have the liability once it's a certain property line. They expect you as a car owner or a homeowner to have insurance and have you pay for it. And that's the process that they've always had. Unfortunately, what we're seeing in the city of Whittier is a slow cutback of common resources and services that the city has enjoyed for 50, 70 years that are now becoming your responsibility. So as a city council member, the first thing we need to start doing is being fiscally responsible, not invest in projects that are going to divide the city or spending money on these lawsuits, and start looking for ways to go back to provide the basic services that we used to provide. A city's job is to maintain the look of the feel of its, of the landscape that we have in front of your house. Part of that's also our responsibility by paying our taxes. So this is a balance and a relationship that, unfortunately, as time has gone on, you're still paying taxes, but you're no longer getting the benefit. As city council member, I plan to revert back and go back to those basic services and fund those first.
Well, this one's a little bit more easier for the city council to deal with than the oil drilling. In order for them to address the claims, they first have to deny the claim and start the process, because if they approve your claim, their insurance won't cover it. I mean, it's that simple. There's no backroom dealings going on, or anything like that. It's just that there's a legal process that the city council has to follow in order to address the homeowner's claims. And each homeowner will have their claims addressed in due time.
Okay, candidates, there are a lot of immigrants and Spanish-speaking low-income families in District 1. Do you plan on being an ally? How so? Robert?
Well, I happen to have grown up in a low-income family myself, coming from a Hispanic family. I see myself more as an ally, and there's a few things that we can do to help them incorporate into our community, become members of our community. Active, I don't just mean members, I mean active members participating in our community. And one of the things I propose is a branch of the library in Southwest Whittier by 5 points that would be dedicated for example, Spanish immigrants. However, we don't have the money for that, but what we can do is we can expand our Spanish language selections at the Central Library. In addition, we're beginning to get a large Chinese population, so we can offer them stuff too to help them. In addition, I wanted to talk to you about a man that I met by the name of Raymond. Raymond was born here in the United States of America, but for some reason, he was denied U.S. citizenship because his dad left our country. And he asked me about that. And what we need to do is, we need to do what we can to help them with the administrative paperwork, to help them become members of our community.
First and foremost, I will not be their ally. I will be one of you. My parents were immigrants, both of them Mexican. Not Latino, not Hispanic, Mexican. They came into this country to provide myself, my sister, my brother, a better quality of life. And it was through a path of citizenship that they were able to do that. They got their residencies during the 80s, and it was very interesting how we took a swing from Republicans helping immigrants to all of a sudden hating immigrants. Where did that happen? What is it that went wrong? We are contributing to this economy. I went to college, my sister went to college, we're progressing as a family. Why is it that all of a sudden we're rapists, we're this, we're that? That's not what the true story is. The American dream is based on giving everyone equal opportunity to achieve and maximize what that means for them. And right now, you have a specific party that's tearing against that, and there's people in that party that don't believe that. But yet it's happening at a national level. Again, I'm not going to be an outsider trying to say I'm going to be friends with this fight. I am part of the fight. And this is one of the reasons why I actually decided to run as a Democrat. And I want to make sure that you guys know this. I will not be pushing people out, but I would be willing to including all people. My background in multicultural marketing gives me the strength to understand the Chinese community, Korean community, and the one closest to home, the Mexican community. We're all one. Don't let them divide us. Thank you.
Candidates, next question. What are you going to do to get the homeless families, veterans, and elderly placed in housing or programs to aid them? Josue?
City Council has actually done some things to say that they want that low-income individuals. There are some developments at play, and there's also some developments that include for senior housing. But the biggest opportunity they had was that property that was used to be the juvenile detention center off of Whittier Boulevard, Nellis. Now for that was a huge part of land that could have been used for senior housing, low-income individuals, which is the predominant force here in District 1. I think that if certain lawsuits do go through, and we are able to open the RFP process again, I would make sure that as a city council member, we lobby for that stuff. Figure out how to work with the state to get the funding, to make sure that a lot of this money that used to come from the state to help the redevelopment here in our city comes back. And the only way we can do that is by working with those and having those relationships at the state level, at the federal level, something that, truth be told, when you look at California, unless you're a Democrat, those doors might be closed to you. So make sure to elect someone that's going to have those goals in mind and make sure that that person has some relationships available to them to make it an easier transition to benefit you. Thank you.
Nails. The thing with nails is that, well, for some of you who read the paper, you might have read that a certain council member said that they would start construction in 2 years. Nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, I was at the hearings, and the developer said it's going to take 6 years. In fact, Nellis right now, which I support only because the city council had promised that they would subsidize the housing, and I intend, as a council member or not, to make sure that to keep them to that promise. There's right now Nellis, in its current state, is not suitable for housing. The reason for that is because they have found arsenic and lead on the property that makes it unsuitable for housing. And that's why they need the time to clean that property up before they can do anything with it. I mean, how many of you want to move into a house that's built on public land that has arsenic or lead? I wouldn't. So we gotta make sure that we're doing everything correctly, and that's why there's a process for it.
And candidates, as you know, the Whittier Conservancy has filed 2 lawsuits that may reset development plans for the former Fred C. Nellis Youth Correctional Facility, which, by the way, is in District 1. If either or both of these suits are successful, how do you think future plans for Nellis should differ from the ones that the council approved last year, if at all? Robert?
Well, one of those lawsuits came about because the city, or should I say the state, or maybe both 2 of them working together, short-circuited the EIR process, which is the Environmental Impact Report process. Anytime you build anything substantial, you have to do an environmental review of the site. And the city actually took too many shortcuts there. Now, having said that, should that succeed, it's possible that, well, all I'll do is just postpone it for a few years, so it may not be different, could be different. My preference is for low-income housing, for low-income families, and for veterans. Hospitality board, to welcome new residents and bring new businesses to our city to hire our local people. And for a veterans recreation center, as well as small businesses. They're talking about bringing in another corporation to Nellis. I'm opposed to that. I'd rather see small businesses in Nellis.
Like I said before, Nellis is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for the city of Whittier.
Yes.
And if we don't do this right, and we keep taking shortcuts and allowing District 1 to get the short end of the stick, this is what will continue as a pattern for you guys. Because we will be the ones that actually suffer from this. The reason that many people are hearing of all these lawsuits, it's not because people are unhappy, it's not because people hate the city, it's because they're legitimately defending your rights. And the only way a court will grant them the win is if a law was actually broken. So we need to keep in mind that, he is right. There is some things happening within the city that impact District 1. And what if, for instance, that those shortcuts are not taken in other nicer areas of Whittier? I am not trying to divide the city. I'm trying to fight for equal rights for the city. Now, can I please have the opportunity to speak in Spanish? Because I really do think there's a few individuals. All right, gracias, disculpen. Pero de adelante voy a contestar cada pregunta en inglés y en español. Este departamento de Nellis, que antes era una casa juvenil, andan tratando de poner casas allí y desafortunadamente hay muchos problemas con cómo la ciudad decidió seguir ese proceso. Ahorita lo que andan peleando y andan demandando la ciudad es porque no decidieron analizar qué problemas puede haber de poner casas en ese sitio. Y la verdad es que hay muchos daños que llegan a poner casas ahí y nosotros llegamos a comprar esas casas. Yo lo que quiero hacer es asegurarme que si voy a representarlos a ustedes, asegurarse que cualquier proyecto sea sano para ustedes y sus familias, y más si van a comprar una casa o rentarla. Y si vamos a tener esos proyectos, vamos a asegurar que sean sanos y disponibles para el 90% de la gente que vive en el distrito que puedan comprar en vez de rentar. Apenas así vamos a levantar la gente de los niveles donde están a unos niveles de verdad interés de la ciudad. Y apenas siendo dueños de casa podemos lograr eso. Pero lo vamos a hacer trabajando juntos. Gracias.
Candidates, question. What can be done to address the Whittier gang problem? Josue?
How many of individuals have lived here since the 80s and the 90s? ¿Quién ha vivido aquí desde los 80s o 90s? Levanten las manos. Sí, exactly. I always thought the gang time was like 80s and 90s, but it's the 60s. Okay. Now, who feels here things have gotten worse? Raise your hand. How many feel things have gotten better? Raise your hand. Compared to what we used to see. I'm not saying the work is done, but we are doing a good thing here. The city of Whittier has its own police department, and even though they have their own shortcomings, little by little we've been able to erode some of those problems that we have. Do they still exist? Absolutely. Do we continue to focus on them? Absolutely. But I at least want to give credit to the Whittier Police Department because they have shaved off a lot of that problem. And I'm very proud, and that's one of the reasons why I chose to move to District 1, because it's not a bad neighborhood. There's decent, hardworking families that live here. just because we're Latino, immigrants, or even any other ethnic or race, that doesn't mean it's a bad neighborhood, but we need to work together. And I think by helping the police department improve that, by reporting what we see, and making sure they are aware of it, it's a step in the right direction. But also working through your city councilman, now that there's going to be a local representative, is also a big plus for this community. Because it'll be our jobs to make sure that if the safety is not priority, you guys get us out the next time. There's no reason as a community that should ever put for sub-standards. And you guys deserve better, and I really like it. Thank you.
Our city has made significant progress in this area. In fact, for only one time in its history, they've taken the unprecedented step a few years ago to impose a gang injunction because they got really bad. Since that time, things have improved. However, we can make them better. My approach is a no-nonsense approach. In fact, we approach this strictly, and we make sure they know what the laws are. If they're going to live in our community, they need to abide by our standards that we together set for them. And if they're not willing to do that, then we have tools at our disposal. For example, if they're selling drugs, for example, and they continue to do so, the city has the power to evict them. How many of you know that? And you can actually bring that problem up, and the city will take action on it. There's a lot of tools at our disposal, a lot of legal tools that have been given to us by federal and state governments.